Hey booktube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me and this is the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you are not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have a recommendations video, and this is about stalking. Yep, stalking. But not your typical stalking romance trope. To me, a stalking romance trope is where stalking is literally the crucial point to the relationship. All of the recommendations that I'm about to recommend to you, stalking is an element of the story, but it's not the entirety of the story. The main plot point does not solely revolve around the stalking element of the story. It's just another tool that the author has used to really either deepen that relationship or make it creepier or further along the plot line. So, without further ado, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking about my favorite stalkers. Okay, so I've already explained to you how I went about picking these recommendations. When you see these recommendations, yes, there are other books out there that are very much better recs for stalking. However, they are primarily stalker books. I want to reiterate that these books that I'm about to mention, stalking is just an element of the story. It's a trigger in the story. It's not the main component to the plot line. The story would not be the same without it, but it's not the entirety of the story. So I'm going to be going down in order of my star ratings for these books, starting with the lowest rated to the highest rated. So the first one I have for you is Halfway to the Grave by Jeannie Frost. This is the first installment to the Night Huntress series. It is a paranormal romance. It does show triggers for blood play. There's assault off page, and we do have a cliffhanger in this as it is the first installment in a series. So this book follows Kat Caulfield and Bones. Those are our two main characters. Kat is a half vampire, and she's hunting vampires and killing them. And in the process, she comes across Bones, and he's kind of like an ancient master vampire. He's over 200 years old, and he is actually doing the exact same thing. Bones thinks that since Kat is killing vampires, she has been hired to find him and kill him. So he basically catches her off guard and starts to hunt her and finally catches her. In the process of catching her, he finds out her secret that she is a half vampire. And in his brilliant mind thinks, hey, let's team up and we'll be this little vampire killing duo. And then we have this awesome training montage that leads to the eventual romance between Bones and Kat. That's the brief synopsis of this installment here. But what I really want to talk about is the stalking element. So this is the only female stalker that I have on this list. And her stalking element is pretty much straightforward. She stalks her prey to eradicate them off the face of the planet. She has a sole purpose for it. So stalking is just a tool. We don't go into a lot of graphic description in the book of her stalking, but there is some mention to it of how she picks her prey, how she finds them, how she lures them in, and then how she gets rid of them. Same with Bones. We also see his technique as well. But I wanted to point her out on this list because she's my only female stalker, and I think, I need to represent equally. That's how it works. So, if you do pick this one up, just know that this is a great time. It is fun. There is a lot of good in this book. There is some great banter between the main characters. But as for the stalking element, it is not a major component of the book, but you do get to see some elements of how she utilizes this tool to find her prey. And Bones being one of her prey, she gets to use her stalking elements on her eventual romantic interest. So I thought it was a good fit for this list. And if you do check it out, please let me know. I have not completed the rest of the series, but it is on my list to complete. I picked this up for one of my Red Witch and Bitchin' Book Club books, and my entire book club loved this book. They've all continued out the series way past me. So I need to catch up. But this is a good time. It's a fun time. However, I do want to make a note about this book. If you read the Laurel K. Hamilton series, Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter Slayer, there is a lot of similarities in those two series. So if you were a diehard fan of that series, just like I was, this series, you will see a lot of similarities to the point where it actually might kind of kind of take you back, be like, really? Wow, that's kind of ripping off. There's a lot of similarities, but if you've never read the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series, this series is fantastic. You will enjoy it. You will enjoy it even if you read that previous series. I just want to make it known to you guys that if you were a lover of that series like I was, this one might be a little difficult just because you're seeing so many similarities. The next book I have is The Professor by Serena Akeroyd, and it looks like this. Don't mind this cover. This cover doesn't really work for the story. Just a heads up, it's one of my don't judge a book by its cover covers. The book is far better than what this cover is, and what you see in this cover, you're not going to get. Just FYI. But this is a standalone, and I actually got this on an audiobook, which was narrated by Wen Ross and Kay Kennicott, so that's how I experienced this book, and that was fantastic. I loved Wen Ross and Kay Kennicott. Their combination is fucking fire. This is a bully romance with a teacher-student romance involved as well. We have coerced consent, death of a child off page, verbal abuse, the stalking element, and domestic assault off page for some of the triggers involved with this book. We follow Nicholas and Phoebe. Phoebe is a student in Nicholas's creative writing class who works 2 jobs and goes to school full-time to support her mother and infant brother. Her home life is shit. Her mother's a piece of shit and is completely worthless and probably should be eradicated off the face of the planet. And she is solely taking care of her younger brother, doing everything she can, and all while still trying to go to school. She's trying to do the right thing by her family. And Nicholas, however, is a divorced professor with a very, very cruel streak infused upon him by his ex-wife. So we also have an ex-wife trope in this, which is utilized really well within the book. But again, it's not a sole main component, but it is shown in there, and it does give some backstory to him. Nicholas is our stalker, and he stalks Phoebe to protect her. He sees Phoebe steal some money out of a till from one of her jobs to help pay for a babysitter because her babysitter fell through, and he takes that moment to jump in and turn this voyeuristic relationship that he has compiled in his head through his stalking and following her around to make it more of a physical relationship. And that's where our story really starts off. The stalking element within this book is pretty much your traditional stalking. It's one of the most straightforward examples on this list for this video. He stalks her to protect her. So to prevent anything from happening to her, to prevent people from talking to her, and multiple jobs. One of her jobs is a bartender, and so he stalks her there, makes sure no one gives her any shit. And he knows her schedule inside and out. He knows where she comes and goes, and essentially he's waiting for just the right time to swoop in and take the stalking level to the next level, to where it's actually no longer stalking, but I am directly involved in your life. So this is probably the most straightforward stalking example on this list, but it's done really, really well. The first half of the book, we are getting this stalking element, and then this stalking thing tends to go away once the initial contact has been made. And so you no longer really have it. It is alluded to again later on in the book, but it's not the main component of the story. It's just it's the tool, it's getting the relationship going. But it was done really, really well. This is a dual point of view, so you do get perspectives from Nicholas and Phoebe. And Nicholas, during his stalking point of views, it's really creepy. If you like dark and twisty, that's where he's really dark and twisty. But there is a lot of good in this book. There's some favorite scenes in this book for me. This one sticks out to me a lot. I had a great time with it, and for it being a standalone, I have really no complaints with it. So I highly recommend checking this one out, especially if you also like teacher-student romances. And if you like the idea of coerced consent, there are some really epic sex scenes in this book with coerced consent. So if that's a trigger that you're cool with, this is another rec for that. But definitely the stalking element in this. If you are not big on stalking Rex, where stalking is a main element, but you just want like a taste of it, like a flavor of it, this is a really good recommendation for the romance level with the stalking, because it directly leads into their relationship and how it starts. So it's a good one. Highly recommend checking this one out. The next book I have to recommend is this guy. This is The Silver Swan by Mo Jones. Queen that she is. This is the first installment to the Elite Kings Club series. It is a dark high school romance. We have enemies to lovers. This is a multi-layer thriller with a mindfuck from page 1 to the very end. And stalking is an element that it's strewn through the book throughout the entirety of this book and probably throughout the series, because I have not read the rest of the series. I have only read the first one of the series, but I feel like it's going to tread all the way through the series. But this one follows Madison. Madison carries a secret that she doesn't even know she carries, has no idea about it. She's just Madison. But she catches the eye of the most intense boys in school, the Elite Kings Club series, the Elite Kings Club. These boys are described as very athletic in build, very domineering, very intense, broody, angsty teenagers, but they are not athletes. They are above that. They are just the guys that every girl wants to be with and every guy wants to be, but we're all too chicken shit to be friends with them and too chicken shit to say shit to them. They're those guys. They're very tense, broody, in your face. Madison's mom marries a man that turns out to be the father of one of the members of the Elite Kings Club series. So now her stepbrother is a member. He is not the main member. He's kind of the mouthpiece of the group. So he's kind of almost a comedic relief to this very dark and twisty fucking series. It's insane. But Bishop, the lead king, targets Madison, and this is really their story. There is relations with some of the other members, so it's not a reverse harem per se, but she does kind of mess around with some of the other members. We do have a instance of messing around with her stepbrother, so another taboo element involved in this book as well. A lot of taboo elements in this book. Mo Jones holds nothing back in this book. Nothing back. This thing is a serious mindfuck, and the stalking is one element that helps with that mindfuck in this story. From the beginning, you know who the stalker is. You know who's sending Madison these little riddles, and she knows who it is. So it's not an unknown stalker. So it almost becomes like a joke to the guys, to Madison, to terrorize her, psychologically terrorize her. And they laugh about it, they joke about it, but they never back off of it. They keep going and they keep going and they keep going. And I swear to God, man, I needed Jesus, a cigarette, and therapy after reading this fucking book. This book was insane. And that stalking element kind of creeped me out because they do it in these little riddles, such as, hello, Madison, you may not know us, but we know you. We want to play a game. Here's what happens if you lose. And along with all of these other riddles, such as, I am neither dead nor alive. I'm not standing, little Madison can't hide. But you will be dead by the time this is done. The timer starts now and the games have just begun. Like, this is some serious, like, Saw mindfuck shit, okay? Like, legit. If you pick this book up, be prepared to not understand what the fuck is going on. Straight up. You will not understand. But that's the beautiful thing about this book. And the stalking element just lends to that layer of fucked up nutso. Okay? This thing, I fucking loved this book. I gave this book 4 stars originally. And I had such a good time with it. But definitely, this is the type of stalking element that scares you. It's the kind that makes you not want to pick up the phone, the heavy breathing on the phone, the kind that makes you look over your shoulder, you jump when you hear something in the night. That's this level of stalking in the book. And it's a mindfuck. And I'm pretty sure it probably goes through the rest of the series. I have not read the rest of the series, but I'm pretty sure it does. Because it's too strong of an element for a Mo Jones to completely drop it. A Mo Jones, when she writes this book, there are multiple plot points going at the same time, stalking being one of these plot points. And when you finally figure out what the stalking is doing, this plot point that you already figured out now makes no fucking sense because you figured out this thing. It's just this weird fucking balancing act that stalking is just an element through. But the book would not be the same without this stalking element. So again, if you are not gung-ho on straight up stalker novels, this gives you a taste, but a little bit more of a taste. Like this isn't just a spoonful of stalking. This is, here's an appetizer of some stalking. See if you can actually handle it, kind of deal. So, yes. The next book I have to recommend is another Amo Jones, believe it or not. Amo Jones does this really, really well, and that is in Peace Lies Havoc. This is the first installment to the Midnight Mayhem series. And I read this for my Smut Club book of the month selection just recently, and I gave this 4 stars. We have rape, dubious consent, forced proximity, hate to love, bully romance, stalking, partial reverse harem, and an HEA with a cliffhanger in the epilogue and aftermath. So we do have an HEA in this book, but if you read the epilogue, you will have a cliffhanger, which will carry into the rest of the series. In this installment, we follow Dove Hendry, and she is kidnapped and forced to perform in the Midnight Mayhem, which is kind of like an X-rated fucked up circus. All right. Sounds pretty dope. In the book it's described. Definitely want to go see it. Just saying. She is forced to be part of the Brothers of Kismet show, where Kingston, Keaton, Kyron, and Killian all psychologically, emotionally, and sexually torture her for the entertainment of so many spectators. Yes, another dark and twisty. Amo Jones does dark and twisty really, really well. Kingston is our main hero, though. That's where the real romance is fostered through. And there's chemistry immediately off the bat between Dove and Kingston. You know this. You know that there is history to their chemistry. You just don't know why, because Amo Jones does this revelation secretive thing really, really well in her books. The stalking element, however, in this book is a little bit more crucial to the plot point because it is streaked throughout the novel. Through these flashbacks and internalized monologues that happen with Dove, every once in a while we'll get this flashback where she'll be in a hotel room and this voice will start talking to her and do things to her. Okay, so it's not only just a voice, but it's a physical entity, and she has no idea who it is. No idea. But it is a direct major plot point at the culmination of this story. So in the level of stalking, this is probably on this list, this is probably the one where the stalking is literally one of the most motivating plot points, but the way it's laced through, you don't even realize it because it's so sparse. It's so minuscule when it's in there. I mean, there are random paragraphs just thrown in there, like a dream here, a moment here, a brief glimpse here, but they're constantly piling and piling and piling up. And then you realize that this stalker that's been following Dove throughout this entirety of this book is a key fucking player, but we just were like, the fuck just happened when that revelation happens? Yeah. So this one I wanted to put on this list because it is directly affiliated with the plot of the story, but it's still, the way it's displayed, still a very minor element to the story, but it's still directly involved. And Amo Jones does it so fucking well. She does it really, really well. Again, this is the first installment to a series. However, this series directly references characters from this series and another standalone of hers. So if you do pick this one up, I highly recommend you read this series plus a few of her standalones before ever venturing into this. This is the only installment of the series that I have read, so I don't know if the other installments of the series spoil some of these series. This series and that standalone, from what I have read, are not spoiled in this book. But I do recommend reading some more Amo Jones before getting to this one, just because there is references, and I don't want you guys to be spoiled for the story, because Amo Jones is not somebody you want to have her story spoiled. You want to earn that revelation, because it is so fucking worth it at the end. Both of these, so worth it at the end. For the mindfuck she's put you on, you don't want that shit spoiled. Telling you what God knows. And the last book I have, which is the most graphic book, I believe, on this list, is Pam Godwin's Vanquish. And it looks like this. This is the second installment to the Deliver series. It was an audiobook done by Joe Raylan and Ryan Westbrook. We have triggers for agoraphobia, body dysmorphic disorder, bulimia, rape, voyeurism, BDSM tendencies, and stalking. So, sorry, my phone is doing something weird. This stalking element in this book, because this is the second installment to in the Deliver series, the first one being Deliver, we meet Van in Deliver. And you do need to read the first book to really understand Van in this one. I have been told that you can read them separately. I do not recommend that. Don't do that, because you will lose the beauty of this book. All these triggers I just rattled off, they are some serious shit, okay? There's a lot of serious shit in this book, but to understand Van as the character that he becomes, you have to know where he came from in the Deliver book. But the stalking element is highly prevalent in this one. So we follow Van and Amber. Van we met in the first installment, and Amber is our new heroine for this installment. Van is in the sex trafficking trade with a girl named Liv from the first installment. And to not ruin Deliver, Van somehow gets out of it. And so does Liv. And we meet Van stalking Liv because he loves her, okay? He does. He is stalking her, and Liv has something that he wants. So he is peeking through her windows, recording her. And in the process of doing that, because Liv happens to live right next door to Amber, who is a shut-in. She is an agoraphobic who is, if you are not familiar with agoraphobia, it's an anxiety disorder that often develops after one or more panic attacks. Symptoms include fear and avoidance of places and situations that might cause feelings of panic, entrapment, helplessness, or embarrassment. Amber lives right next door to Liv, but Van has no idea about it. He thinks this is just an abandoned meth house because the windows are shuttered. He never sees anybody move in there. So he just thinks it's an abandoned house. But all the while, Amber is living there. And one fateful night, while Van is stalking Liv, Amber has to come out of her house because her normal delivery guy no longer will bring her stuff to her house. And so Van has encountered Amber, and his sights have turned to her. And Van, being the stalker at heart, turns his sights to Amber, and that's where our story in this one really kicks off. This story, with the element of stalking, it shows what can be noticed while stalking. Yes, is stalking a bad thing? Yeah, it is. But you can catch a lot while stalking, okay? I don't know a single person who's not guilty of like Facebook stalking somebody that they're attracted to. In today's age, it's pretty easy to virtually stalk people on the internet, okay? And I'm not talking about that. But in that level, you have noticed other things about people's lives or caught other things that they've been crossed with. And that's kind of why I want to put this one on the list, because Van sees Amber. His sights become set on her. His attraction from Liv starts to dissipate. And he sees this broken, fragile, gorgeous creature, and he wants to fucking play. And in the process of stalking her, he learns about her disorder, studies it, because Van might be twisted, he might be sick and fucked in the head, but he is not stupid. He's not a stupid man. He learns, and he learns how to manipulate Amber in a way where she's really coerced eventually, and he learns about her disorders, and he does what Van does. This one, out of all of the recommendations on this list, is the one that has probably the most graphic triggers because of the rape component. There is a non-con scene in this, and it is very graphic. So I would like to warn you about that. But this story, I walked into this book hating Van, hating him. And I left this story loving him. Pam Godwin, the arc that she gives Van is so insanely good that it will knock you off your socks. I fucking love this book. I loved this book. I still talk about this book. This was 5 stars for me, and I barely held on to it because when I got to that scene, I was about to say, no, fuck this, I'm done. But I kept on, and I'll be damned if I was so thankful I did, because the character arc that Van is given in this story, stalking aside, just his character, this thing was stunning. So I definitely want to put this on the list because stalking in this book caused him to change. Because of his stalking, he encountered someone that allowed him to grow into this awesome, badass fucking character that I just love. And it's all because he was stalking somebody. So, those are my recommendations for stalking. No, these are not stalkers where the whole book is a stalking element. This is just a tool that the author has used to further perpetuate the romance within the story. So if you guys pick up any of these recommendations, please let me know, and I will see you guys all soon with another video. Bye, guys.